All right, so this is a flow chart that I made over 15 years ago, and just try to help the students kind of see what they need to do, because there's all kinds of explanations that show how to determine whether there's one or zero, one or two solutions whenever we have some ambiguity possible. So whenever you look at this flow chart, it's pretty easy to read, I think, but you got to know something about flowchart symbols. And this was taught back then, other classes. But anyway, an oval is always your start-stop option. A diamond means there's a decision to be made. A rectangle means that there's some work to be done. You're going to do some calculation. And pretty much those are the processors that you need to know for this flowchart. So what I'm going to do to determine, okay, 0, 1, 2 solutions, I'm going to go and we're going to look at, and one of the problems you're going to see is that this says always angle A. So whenever we have an angle side-side situation, we need to relabel our triangle after we put the initial information on there. We need to relabel our triangle so that the angle we're talking about is angle A. And I'll show you what I'm talking about whenever we get to a problem that involves that. That way it'll kind of help us read this flow chart, which I think is a pretty easy way to follow through and see what we've got, whether we have 0, 1, or 2 solutions. So I'm going to go and get problem 21, because basically on problems 21 through 30, the instructions just say solve. And like I said, before we solve, it's good to know whether there's 0, 1, or 2 solutions. You could use this information on 13 through 20 also, whenever you look at 5 through 10 on page 298 in the exercises. Those problems, they're just tell how many triangles are possible, 0, 1, or 2. So definitely you would use it there. So let's go back and let's look at, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to look at number 21, and I'll write the information down. So on 21, he says that, and I got to get more lead. My pencil's run out of lead here. See if I've got more. There we go. All right. So angle A is 42.5. Side A is 15.6. Side B is 8.14. All right, so again, I draw my triangle. Always draw a triangle, always put my stuff on there, A and B and C. A is 42.5, little a is 15.6, little b is 8.14. So for this, and I've got, an angle side-side, and I've got angle that I'm given is angle A. So I'm good to go. I'm good to start with the information just like it is. Now, let's look at this flow chart and follow along. Start. Is my angle A less than 90? That's, again, a decision is to be made. Well, my angle's 42.5, so the answer is yes, it's less than 90. I follow it down here. So I'm going to calculate B sine, and this should be capital A for angle A, okay? So I'm going to calculate B times the sine of A. That's the first thing I'm going to do. B is 8.14 times the sine of 42.5. And again, I get my calculator. .14 times the sine of 42.5 gives me 5.499, or 5.5. Okay, so remember, this is B times the sine of A. All right, now back to my flow chart. I've calculated B sine A, and so my next step is A less than B sine A. All right, A is 15.6, B sine A is 5.5, so the answer to that is A less than B sine A is no. Back to my decision box. Go over here, no. Is A bigger than B sine A? Well, that answer is yes. Okay? And then The next question is A less than B. Is A less than B? Well, the answer to that one is no. So that tells me I've got one solution. Okay? And then I would just go through and I would work it just like we did on lesson 7.1, the early ones that we did. Okay? Now, let's look at the next problem, which is not the next one, but number 23. Okay? As I look at 23, try to get it over just a little without letting it fall off my box. All right. So as I look at 23, angle B is 72.2. Side B is 78.3 meters. Side C is 145 meters. I draw my generic triangle again. Always get a visual, always draw this, and it's going to be really important for using this flow chart too, because remember, if we're not given angle A, if the angle we're talking about is not angle A, we got work to do. All right, so I'm going to label it same thing, A, then B, then C. Okay? He says angle B is 72.2. And side B is 78.3. And side C is 145. All right, so we got an angle, side pattern. But here's my problem with my flow chart. Instead of A for my angle, I have B for my angle. So I need to relabel my triangle now. This is going to be A. That means that this is going to be A for using my flow chart. Now, when I have to go back and solve this triangle, I need to go back to my original letters. But for using the flow chart to find out how many solutions, this is what I got to do. And then this becomes B, and this becomes C. That makes this over here a little b. All right? So I'm not going to be looking here, when I compare is A and B less or greater than or whatever. I'm going to be looking at my triangle and seeing these numbers. Also, I go back to my chart. All right. So the first thing is angle A less than 90. Angle A, 72.2. The answer to that is yes. So I come here, calculate B sine A. All right, so B is 145 times the sine of 72.2. So B times the sine of A is equal to, I get my calculator, 145 times the sine of 72.2. That's 138.1. 138 is good enough. All right, now then we're going to use that information. Got to answer our questions. We've calculated B sine A. It's 138. I'm going to go over here. Next one is A less than B sine A. Remember, we look here. A is 78.3. B sine A is 138. And the answer is, yes, it is. What does that tell me? No solution. And I stop, and I write whoops, I can't spell. But you're going to write no such triangle exists. Okay? And you're done with that one. All right. Look at 25. 25, we've got 38 degrees 40 minutes for angle A. We've got little a, side A is 9.72 kilometers, big triangle. Little b is 11.8 kilometers. Once again, I draw my generic triangle, and I just label it A and B and C, and I plug stuff. A is 3840, This is one of those where I'm good to go. I don't have to do any shuffling of letters or anything. Side A is 9.72. And side B is 11.8. So back to my start and flow chart is A less than 90. Angle A is 3840. That is less than 90, so that's a yes. Got to calculate B sine A. Okay. So B sine A would be 11.8 times the sine, 38 degrees, 40 minutes. Okay. Get my calculator and run that through. 11.8 sine of 3840, 11.8 sine of 38 degrees and 40 minutes. 7.37. Okay. So whenever I look at that, 7.37, my next question on my chart, I've calculated B sine A, is A less than B sine A. A is, whoops, got to go to my triangle. Well, it doesn't matter. 9.72, is that less than 7.37? The answer is no. So I'll come over here. Is A greater than B sine A? A is 9.72, B sine A is 7. The answer is yes. And is A less than B? 9.72 is less than 11.8. The answer is yes. That means I got two solutions. And that means I would go back and I would solve them just like I did the problem at the end of the first video for this lesson. Okay? So that's how you determine how many solutions. We're going to do one more so that we can get an answer of A is less than 90. The answer is no. Okay? So for that one, I'm going to use, let's see, where am I at? I guess I'll use 27, all right? 27. It says there that angle A is 9680. Oh, I'm sorry, 96.80 degrees. I started to say, why is that 80 minutes out there? They wouldn't leave it like that. It's because I didn't read it right. 96.80 degrees, so you see significant digits come into play here. B, 3.589. And little a is 5.818. Once again, I'm going to draw my triangle. I get in the habit of doing this, drawing my triangle. It doesn't become cumbersome every time. Get old like me, you can't draw straight lines. 98.8. And then little a is 5.818, and little b is 3.589. Once again, I didn't point this out, but we got an angle side-side pattern. So we know there's a possibility of being ambiguity coming into play. So we look. First question, is A less than 90? Well, A is 96 points, so that's not less than 90. So the answer is no. Is A greater than B? Is this A is 5 point and B is 3.5? So 5 is big. A is greater than B. The answer is yes. And so that tells me that there's one solution. Of course, obviously, if the answer was no, there would be no solution. But that's how you use it if the angle's bigger than 90. Anyway, that's it. I will put the problems that we did on your Google Classroom with this video.